We're here today, June 8th, 2026, and interviewing James L. Nelson on Fathom Five. And we're at Mitchell Field, where some of the action in this incredibly wonderful book takes place. So, thanks.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to be in Mitchell Field. I will start off by saying this is a work of fiction. All characters are fictitious, and any resemblance to people living or dead is purely coincidental. It says it right in the front of the book.
Right in the front of the book. Well, because that is a big question that you see, because Jim has written more than 35 books, and this is the only one I've read, and maybe is the only one that is set in contemporary times.
Yeah, that's right. All of my writing has been historical. I started off writing historical fiction, primarily maritime fiction. I did a series about the American Navy during the Revolution. I did a series about piracy in Virginia. I've written about the Civil War Navy. And then I branched out into nonfiction for a while, again, still maritime oriented. So I did a book on the Monitor and the Merrimack, and I've done 3 books of nonfiction about the naval action of the American Revolution. And then I'm back into historical novels now. But I always wanted to write a contemporary novel. I love thrillers. I love contemporary books like that. I'm a big fan of them. So of course, I was always interested in writing one. So this book had been, I think probably more than any other book I've written, it has been bouncing around in my head for a long time, and actually had many iterations before I finally got to the final.
Because that's what I was wondering about too. Because I didn't live here during the LNG time, but I've certainly heard so many stories about it, and it was really 2003, 2004, and yet the book came out in 2016.
Really?
So I was just wondering.
Remember.
Yeah, but you kind of had it in your head the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was it about the LNG controversy that was so interesting to you?
Well, there are a couple of things. On the one of the things that I was really particularly interested in this book was the sort of corporate machinations of trying to make this thing happen. There were a lot of hard feelings in the community on all sides during that time. And I don't touch on that at all because for a couple of reasons. One, that wasn't really sort of the theme of the book. I wanted to look at what the corporations were doing and their sort of cutthroat tactics. And of course, I didn't feel the need to dredge that all up again. I think there was a lot of a really good dramatic potential just in what the business community was trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so when you said you did a lot of iterations, did you write the book all the way through and then change it, or were you doing segments?
I did segments. I had a number of different false starts and a number of different ideas. It didn't always revolve around the LNG idea. And like I said, it's funny to me because usually I know exactly what I'm going to write. But with this book, I sort of tried one thing, tried something else, and then finally, the LNG thing was in the back of my head, sort of bouncing around in there, and I thought, okay, here you've got these big corporations are trying to do something in this little community, and how is that going to impact the community, and what nefarious things might they be up to try to make this happen. So that was really sort of the genesis of the book. Yeah. But I like to think it's more character driven than plot driven necessarily. The one constant was always the main character, Caleb Hayes.
Yeah.
I had him in my mind. I had him very clearly in my mind and who he was, and so that never changed. Yeah. And it was just a matter of what trouble is he going to get into?
Oh yeah, well he's a fabulous character. Well, and it's interesting too because some of the things in his background are like your background. So there's got to be some pieces of that are a little bit autobiographical. But there's also pieces like other folks in Harpswell even though this isn't
Right,
based on
right.
anybody.
Well, and this was one of the things that I debated, just to take another track for a moment. One of the things that I debated in writing this was whether or not to actually set it in Harpswell. And I went back and forth, and I think even in some of the drafts that I did, it actually was Harpswell. And then I finally ended up creating this fictitious town of Hopefleet. And there were a couple of reasons for that. One, it allows me to put things in the book that are not necessarily here in town. For instance, there's a tavern that they all hang out in.
Nasty bar, yeah.
Right, a nasty bar, exactly. And I sure wish there was one here in in Harpswell, but there isn't, alas. So I had to make one up. So, so it gives me a little more flexibility in that regard.
Yeah.
I'm not actually bound to the real geographic location. And it allows me to play with characters and, sort of hint at them. Now, your question was about whether there's something autobiographical in Caleb Hayes. And I'd say, I think this is probably true for most writers. It's certainly true for me. There's something autobiographical in all of my characters. What we try to do as writers, of course, is create a believable person. We're trying to create a fleshed out human being. So you're obviously going to look to the example that you know the best, which is yourself. So invariably when I'm writing, I'm thinking, well, okay, how would I react to this? And of course, a lot of it is, how in my fantasies do I wish I would react to this? Because, I am not a martial arts expert like Caleb Hayes, for instance, as much as I wish I was. So part of it, there's an autobiographical quality. Part of it is sort of a fantasy version, I think, of who I wish I was. And I suspect a lot of writers have that. But yeah, there's a lot about me that informs the book. Caleb, as you say, he goes to Los Angeles. He grows up in Maine, goes to Los Angeles, goes to UCLA, which I did. He wants to pursue a career as an actor, which was not what I did. I was interested in directing. Did that for a while, got sick of it. I got sick of it and left. He had other reasons for leaving. And like him, I come back to Maine. Or I should say, like me, he comes back to Maine.
No, it's really great. But I mean, the details of the town are so wonderful, and the way you capture the speech patterns and the attitudes is so strong that I'm sure there were people after the book came out who read it and thought, that's me. He's writing about me. And I bet you have, a bunch of
Talk
situations
to my lawyer.
where that's happened. Really? Yeah. Well,
no, I'm kidding. And actually, it's certainly true. And again, I think this is true of all writers. We take little bits. We're thieves. We take little bits from this person and put them together. And we're always watching, and we're always sort of picking up on the little idiosyncrasies and the patterns of speech, and just how people interact. Those are all the little bits that we gather and weave the fiction from. So certainly, I mean, I hope that my love for Harpswell and the folks here come through in the book, because that certainly is a big part of the intention. And actually, I hadn't really thought about it before until this moment, but really, I guess most of the bad guys are from away, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, all the bad guys are from away, noticeably, right?
Okay. Now, I don't have anything against people from away, now, mind you. That's, but no, there's certainly my love for the folks here. And, I was born and raised in Lewiston. I had a lot of wanderlust when I was 18. I got out of there as fast as I could. Spent years wandering around the country, working on sailing ships, doing that sort of thing. And then finally, when I got married and we had our first child, time to settle down, we knew Maine had to be it. But I wasn't interested in moving back to Lewiston. So we found this place in Harpswell. And our family had been coming to Harpswell in the summers when ever since I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
We
so
would
you already knew it.
I wondered
why you picked Harpswell.
Yeah, we would rent houses on Bailey Island for the
Yeah.
summer, and so I already had a deep love of this town, and then we ended up moving here, and that really kind of cemented it.
Nice.
So yeah, I think as I said, I hope my love for the community comes through in this.
Oh, it totally
And,
does. Well, the other thing is the detail that you get into. Like when you describe, when Caleb goes out on the lobster boat and he's teaching Katie about it, every little piece is so detailed and so real. So you must have spent a lot of time lobstering.
I have. I've never done it for a living, but I've got a lot of friends who lobster, and I've been out hauling traps with them. And yeah, so I have a pretty good understanding of how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of like creating the dialogue, one of the things I was most proud of, Katie, the character that you mentioned, is she's 25, and I have a son who's about the same age, and he said, "Wow, Dad, you really got the speech patterns of kids that age down right." That I was most proud of. It's like I know how people around here talk, but how 25-year-olds talk, not quite so sure.
Well,
So I was very proud of that.
Worked. Yeah, right. Well, the other thing is, I think, there's so much like the speech patterns, and you capture so much of the smells of not just the lobstering, but Mitchell Field, and how you describe how Mitchell Field smells at night is exactly how Mitchell Field smells at night. And it just seems so tactile and sensory that I'm just surprised there hasn't been a movie out of this. Have you ever considered?
Let's get on the phone.
Yeah. It just seems
Call
like
your Hollywood friends.
All right, you're the one with the California one.
Yeah,
it just seems like it should be, because there's so much that you just picture it happening.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. And that's what I think. To some degree, because I went to film school, and that was my initial training, and I think to some degree that training has informed my writing.
Oh.
When I write, I don't know if other writers are this way, but when I write, I see a scene very clearly in my mind, as if it was a movie playing out in my mind, and I'm just describing what I see on the screen, as it were.
Oh, okay.
But I'm also remembering those other things that you mentioned. Whenever I've taught writing, I've always made a point that you have to remember all the senses. You've got to remember what it smells like, what it sounds like. And that's great. With historical fiction, it's wonderful because, what it smells like today is pretty much what it smelled like 200 years ago. So yeah, I do try to bring all of that in. I think it certainly fleshes the narrative out.
But that's really interesting. It doesn't go from a book to a film, and it's a film in your head to the book almost.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
right.
Of a lot of other writers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
So, and I appreciate what you're saying, that it would make a good movie. I would love to see it made into one, but I know I've had a number of books that have been optioned for movies, and with an option, a producer will essentially rent the book, if you will. They'll pay a certain option fee, and that gives them the rights to try to develop it into a motion picture. And that's happened with a number of my books. None have ever actually been made into a movie.
Not yet.
But not yet. We're working on it. The closest I got was a producer told me that Scarlett Johansson would play Anne Bonny in my pirate book if they got a good director, and they never did. So
wow.
Closest I got.
Yeah, because still it could happen. Well, I was really kind of intrigued with the title too, A Full Fathom Five. I mean, it's alliterative, it's fathoms, but how did it come about? How did the title come?
Well, it's people complain that my titles never have anything to do with my books, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
That's from Shakespeare's Tempest.
Oh.
Full fathom five, thy father lies, those are pearls that were his eyes, nothing of him doth remain.
Okay.
So yeah, I just honestly, it's I thought it was very evocative. Of course, I guess it's not a spoiler to say in the opening scene, Caleb pulls up a dead body on his lobster trap. So there's that whole the full fathom five, and so that was the origin of that title.
Yeah.
And,
well, often do you the titles that you think of, or do you have your editors and the book publishing other people enter in and say, "Oh, Jim, did you think about it this way"? It's
usually they will go with my titles. There have been a few occasions where I've had editors change them, and I think primarily with nonfiction that's happened. I wrote a book about the Battle of Valcour Island in the American Revolution, which was a naval battle that was led by Benedict Arnold when he was still a good guy. And I think I just called it Valcour, and my editor changed it to Benedict Arnold's Navy because he thought the name would sort of be, And I think it was a good call actually on his part because people are fascinated with Benedict Arnold. So I think it helped.
Oh yeah. Well, so you're thinking of a sequel, or you're already starting on a sequel?
This was definitely begun as a series.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, life got in the way. So it's been, when did you say that was published? I can't even remember. 2016. So it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. Yes. I am working on a sequel. Actually, my son that I mentioned, who was impressed with my dialogue, my 25-year-old dialogue, he is also a writer, very talented guy, but it's awfully hard for a young writer to break out these days. I remember, I started writing in 1992 and published my first book in 1994. There was no internet, there was no streaming service, there was, the economy was doing great. You could actually make a living as a writer. And now there's so much attention for eyeballs in so many different places that it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think, he's written a number of books that have been, they're very good. They haven't sold much.
Yeah.
But I thought this would be a real nice opportunity for he and I to work together.
Right.
And he was born and raised in Harpswell, so he knows the town well. And so we're working on a sequel, carrying Caleb's story further. And hopefully it's going to keep going.
Oh, that'd be great.
I just finished up a series about the Vikings, which ran to 12 books. So, it's possible this could run to 12 books.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Well, at this point, do you think, is Katie still the love interest, or is that giving away more than you want to give away?
No, not necessarily. She is in the book.
Okay.
I won't say whether she's the love interest or not, but she's definitely in the book. Whether she continues on, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But she definitely plays a major role in the next book. We will wrap that storyline up in some way that hopefully is satisfying to the readers.
Well, so how do you and Nathaniel work together? Do you do a chapter, he does a chapter? Because I love how your chapters break down to one very specific incident each time.
Yeah.
It's so, you're like the dream writer to diagram because of that. It's very neat.
Well, I try, I that's very conscious in my writing. When I'm writing, I'm not only thinking about the prose, but I'm also thinking about paragraph length, chapter length, how it looks on a page. If you ever opened a book and you just see a solid block of text, you just go, oh. It can be very discouraging. So I think about that in terms, because those are things too that sort of pull the reader along. The pacing of that and having a chapter that is you can read it, you can finish it before you go to sleep at night. Yep. Basically. So I'm thinking in those terms. What was the question?
No, how are you and Nathaniel dividing it? Are you dividing it by chapters, or are you dividing it by sections?
The first thing we do is we get together and we hash out an outline.
Yeah.
And that, he might come up. He's living down in Cambridge now as well. So he'll come up and we'll spend, a couple days just banging out an outline. And then, because I've got a bunch of other projects going on, he will generally write the first draft.
Oh, nice.
And then he'll send it to me and I'll go over it and we'll discuss it and go back and forth. It has been a long process, in part because, as I said, I've got other projects going on and he's in school right now.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of...
We've been going at this for a while, but it should be, we're very close. I'm hoping certainly this summer it should be out.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll be called 3-Night Set.
Three-Night Set.
And which is a lobstering thing.
Yeah.
So, so that should be out.
Well, I can't wait till you have the opening party. That'll be just great.
That's a good idea. We should have a book launch party.
Absolutely, a book launch party. This is super. Well, it's a fantastic book. And I still, every time I come down here, I think about that incredible scene that is in this space. When, you see this placid, beautiful green space, and then just a wonderful way to sort of think about all the lives that this place has had.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
In fiction and in
Yeah,
real life.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
super.
Yeah, it's funny actually. My brother-in-law was a merchant mariner, and he was on a ship that delivered fuel here probably
Oh.
20 years before Lisa and I moved here.
Wow.
So,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah,
All the
so-
ways that it,
Yeah.
and you maybe didn't even know that at the time. You know, when-
No. We bought the house, and he said, Harpswell, I was there once.
Wow. That's double great. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. It was a
Fabulous.
pleasure.
Great.
Thanks.